The dead man who fooled Hitler. Imagine if one dead man could change the course of an entire war. No weapons, no army, no battle, just a single body, floating in the ocean. It sounds like something from a Hollywood movie, but this actually happened. And what's even more unbelievable is that one of the most powerful dictators in history believed the lie. A lie so convincing that it helped change the outcome of World War II. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating history stories. Because today's story is one of the most brilliant military deceptions ever created. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how a man who never fired a single shot helped win one of the most important battles of World War II. The year was 1943. World War II had reached a turning point. The Allies were preparing for one of their biggest invasions yet. Their target was Sicily. The island was the gateway to mainland Italy. Whoever controlled Sicily controlled the next stage of the war. But there was one huge problem. The Germans already expected an invasion, and Adolf Hitler knew Sicily was the most likely target. If German forces concentrated their troops there, the invasion could become a disaster. Thousands of Allied soldiers could die before they even reached the beaches. The Allies needed a miracle, not a bigger army, not better weapons, a distraction, something so convincing that Hitler himself would move his troops away from Sicily. For weeks, British intelligence searched for ideas. Nothing seemed good enough, until one officer suggested something almost unbelievable. What if we could trick the Germans into believing they had stolen secret military plans? At first, it sounded impossible. Why would Germany trust documents handed to them by the enemy? Then someone proposed an even stranger idea. Someone who could convincingly appear to be a military officer. Someone whose death wouldn't immediately raise suspicion. His death was tragic. Instead, he would become Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. From that moment, the mission stopped being about a body. Every tiny detail mattered. They filled his pockets with personal letters. A photograph of his fictional fiancée, love letters, bank receipts, a theater ticket, keys, even unpaid bills. Nothing was random. Everything was carefully designed to make him look real. Because real people don't carry perfect pockets. They carry ordinary lives. Pam. They wrote emotional letters between the two. So convincing that some intelligence officers later admitted they almost forgot she never existed. But the most important item wasn't a photograph. It was a sealed briefcase, locked to his wrist. Inside were documents marked top secret. The papers claimed the Allies planned to invade Greece and Sardinia, while Sicily would only be a diversion. Exactly the opposite of the real plan. Now all they needed was for those documents to fall into German hands. But they couldn't simply leave the body anywhere. It had to be discovered naturally, by people who would unknowingly deliver the information straight to Nazi intelligence. The location they chose was the southern coast of Spain. Spain was officially neutral during the war, but many officials secretly cooperated with Germany. If everything went according to plan, the Spanish authorities would recover the body, examine the documents, and eventually allow German intelligence to copy them. It was an enormous gamble. If anyone suspected the deception, thousands of lives depended on one impossible plan, and the next step would determine whether Operation Mincemeat became history's greatest deception or history's greatest failure. At midnight on April 30th, 1943, a British submarine quietly surfaced off the coast of southern Spain. There were no speeches, no applause, only the sound of waves crashing against the hull. Inside the submarine rested the body of Major William Martin. To everyone who might eventually find him, he was a respected Royal Marines officer. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Before releasing the body into the sea, the officers said a brief prayer. Then they gently pushed him into the water. Along with him, they released a rubber life jacket, hoping it would make the death appear accidental. Then the submarine disappeared into the darkness. Now, everything depended on chance. Would the body be found? Would the documents remain attached? Would anyone believe the story? Hours later, as he moved closer, he realized it was the body of a military officer. Just as British intelligence had hoped, Spanish authorities recovered the body. Soon afterward, they noticed the locked briefcase attached to his wrist. Officially, Spain promised to respect diplomatic rules. The documents would remain untouched. But British intelligence knew something different. They believed German agents inside Spain would secretly examine every page before returning them. And that's exactly what appears to have happened. The sealed envelopes showed tiny signs of being opened, almost impossible to notice, unless you already knew where to look. British experts carefully examined the papers after they were returned. Microscopic damage, tiny scratches. To most people, the documents looked untouched. To intelligence officers, they revealed everything. The Germans had read them, waiting. No one in London knew whether Hitler had believed the deception. Days passed, then weeks. Finally, intercepted German communications began telling an incredible story. German commanders were strengthening defenses in Greece. Additional troops were moved towards Sardinia. Even armored divisions were relocated, exactly where the fake documents claimed the invasion would happen. Meanwhile, Sicily, the real target, received fewer reinforcements than expected. British commanders could hardly believe it. One carefully constructed lie appeared to be changing the movement of an entire army. And then, the moment of truth finally arrived. On July 10, 1943, more than 160,000 Allied soldiers landed in Sicily. Operation Husky had begun, although fierce fighting followed. German defenses were weaker than many commanders had feared. The deception had done its job. Hitler had divided his attention. His forces had been spread across multiple locations. Instead of concentrating everything on Sicily, he had prepared for attacks that never came. Military historians still debate exactly how much Operation Mincemeat influenced the invasion. But most agree on one thing. It forced German commanders to waste valuable troops, time, and in war. Yet perhaps the most remarkable part of this operation wasn't the fake documents. It wasn't the submarine. It wasn't even the body. It was the incredible attention to detail. Every letter, every receipt, every photograph, every personal item was designed to answer one simple question. What if someone looks closer? Because the greatest lies aren't built with big details. They're built with tiny ones. The kind that make a story feel real. The kind that convince even the smartest people. And in this case, they convinced Adolf Hitler himself. For decades, the identity of the mysterious officer remained classified. The world believed that Major William Martin had actually existed. Visitors came to pay their respects. Without realizing, they were honoring a man who had never lived. It wasn't until years after the war that many of the operation's secrets were finally revealed. The truth surprised everyone. Major William Martin had never been a real officer. His name, his rank, his fiancée, his letters, even the keys in his pocket, had all been carefully created by British intelligence. Only one thing about him was real. The man whose body had made the mission possible. His real name was Glyndwr Michael, a homeless Welshman. He had lived a difficult life. He never imagined that after his death, he would become one of the most important figures in one of history's greatest deception operations. Today, historians consider Operation Mincemeat one of the most successful intelligence missions ever carried out. Military academies still study it, not because of advanced technology, not because of powerful weapons, but because it proved something extraordinary. Sometimes, information is more powerful than bullets. A single false document can move entire armies. A single believable story can change the decisions of world leaders. And one carefully planned lie can save thousands of lives. Think about it. Hitler had millions of soldiers, thousands of tanks, aircraft, warships, one of the largest military forces the world had ever seen. Yet one fake identity, one briefcase, and one dead man managed to deceive that entire machine. It's almost impossible to believe. But that's exactly why this story remains so fascinating. Because it reminds us that history isn't always changed by the strongest people. Sometimes, it's changed by the smartest ideas. Operation Mincemeat became a perfect example of psychological warfare. Instead of defeating the enemy with force, the Allies defeated them with belief. They manipulated it. They allowed the enemy to reach the wrong conclusion, all by themselves. And that's what made the deception so powerful. No one forced Hitler to believe the documents. He chose to believe them, because every tiny detail looked authentic. Every piece fit together. Every clue pointed toward the same conclusion, exactly as British intelligence had planned. Even today, Many intelligence experts describe Operation Mincemeat as one of the greatest examples of strategic deception ever recorded. Not because it was impossible, but because it was brilliantly simple. A body, a briefcase, a believable story. That was enough. More than 80 years later, people are still amazed that such an unbelievable plan actually worked. It sounds like fiction, yet every major part of this operation is supported by historical records. It's one of those rare moments where reality is even more incredible than imagination. So the next time someone tells you that one person can't change history, remember the man who never fought, the man who never fired a weapon, the man who never spoke a single word, yet helped change the outcome of World War II. But history will always remember him that way. So what do you think? Was Operation Mincemeat the greatest military deception ever created? Or do you know another historical operation that was even more brilliant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, history isn't just a collection of battles. Sometimes, it's a collection of unbelievable stories that actually happened.